Folks, the Iran war is currently leading to some very, very sad consequences, reactions, and just very unintended situations breaking out. Now, in this video, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about maybe some of the real reasons that this attack on Iran happened. I don't talk about it very much, but, you know, obviously Israel and the relationship between Israel and the United States is a big part of this. And we've just seen an absolutely disgraceful scene in the US Senate where a US Marine was actually standing up, giving his thoughts on the situation, basically saying that he doesn't feel like it's right for him and his people to go to war and have to put their lives on the line for what Israel want to do. He was forcibly removed from the Senate, and they literally, it looked like a US senator broke a US Marine's arm. Literally broke his arm, removing him from the Senate. It's one of the most disgraceful things I've ever seen. So in this video, I'm going to show you some of this situation that's going on, some of the reasons that we're actually going to war with Iran in, well, not we, I'm English, but we're trying to stay out of it. But some of the reasoning behind what's going on. And I'm going to give you a better understanding as far as everything that's going on, some of the protests that might be going on, and just some of the reaction that has been very sad and interesting. So this is the footage, okay? I actually don't want to show you exactly what happens, because as you're going to see, he basically gets his arm broken, all right? So I'm not going to show it to you. His arm gets stuck in the door. You can't see it now. His arm literally snaps in half. You might have heard the snap.
His hand!
Awful, okay? He's basically stuck there. They break his arm in half. This is a senator. They're saying, let go, he's stuck. They're holding his head. What a disgraceful way to treat a US Marine. All right, this is how they respect their forces.
Sir. Okay. I'm stuck in the door. Okay, sir.
He's stuck.
Senator just broke the hand of a Marine.
He's stuck.
A U.S. Senator just broke the hand of a Marine.
You're a coward.
Punk. What'd you say? Senator? That's why you got kicked out, fat ass.
Everybody sit down, please. Sit down, please. Everybody sit down, please. Everybody sit down, please.
I'm getting out of here.
That's fine. Everybody sit down, please.
He's seriously injured.
No, it's not.
This is disgusting.
They said, is your hand okay? He said, no, it's not. It's snapped. I'm a Marine. He's taking this like a champ. If it was me, I'd be screaming, ah, my hand. This is a true patriot, a true American, the toughest American. These are the guys that you're going to want over there putting their lives on the line for you in Iran. And look how you're doing them. It's disgraceful.
Is your hand okay? No, it's not.
This is disgusting. Disgusting.
Just pull it out.
Absolute disgrace. Absolute disgrace. It's diabolical what's going on. And so we did actually get some reaction from the basically the US Marine Corps subreddit, basically talking about this situation. Absolute disgrace. Okay, the real beauty of this is the amount of men that it takes to pull one Marine away from a door. Just goes to show you, right? Just goes to show you these are some tough dudes. So the Marine vet himself, he's apparently Brian McGinnis, who actually served from 2000 to 2004, and he's a Green Party candidate in North Carolina. He apparently started a loud anti-war protest during a Senate Armed Services Committee hearing, and Capitol Police responded, which is all fairly common. Then for some reason, Montana Senator Tim Sheehy decided he needed to help. He's a SEAL veteran who totally didn't shoot himself in the foot at a U.S. national park. Oh God, that's crazy. Sheehy being a SEAL makes the story even better in my opinion. He's got a chip on his shoulder for having been high speed, low drag, and now has to function as an elected leader, or at least he's supposed to. He's like too many politicians today in it to get wealthy. Apparently he made $12 million on the stock market last month. What the hell? He's the 11th wealthiest member of Congress. Think about that and tell me how much he really cares about the troops as they're deployed to the Middle East. Again, as he makes $12 million a month on the stock market on deals he's helping legislate. Can I get in on some of that, please? Could I get some of these $12 million a month, please? I could see the arm break a while before it happened, but still, did it actually break or did it dislocate the elbow? It looks like it broke the ulnar and radius. Can confirm it's broken. It is insane. The senator was the first guy in the suit who decided to apply maximum force to the Marine's torso. That's what caused the break. Second guy then runs up trying to disentangle the hand from the door. Fucking classic SEAL move. Don't assess or think. Just huck yourself at the problem like a toddler running into traffic. I've seen and had both dislocations and arm breaks. That was a break. You can hear two distinct snaps, and the weird-ass bend in his forearm shows up at the same time, right where the edge of the door is pressing against. Dislocation wouldn't cause a bend in the forearm. You hear the snap and the pop. Absolute Disgrace. But why does the cop decide to caress his head like that? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. People saying, oh crap, right now Marine Corps bases all over the globe are conducting mandatory recalls of all personnel to report to the base theater. They will be receiving classes on what you can and cannot do at the Senate Armed Services Committee. Make sure you get your name on the roster. All right? Genius in the suit thought, oh yeah, 4-on-1, watch me stretch Armstrong on his legs. Even that didn't work out too well, lol. Semper Fi, bro, keep fighting the good fight and F all of these draft-dodging politicians and sycophants who have yet to send a single kid to pound sand. Our boy didn't even cry out. He's tough. People saying, I didn't enlist to serve Israel either or any other country but the USA, just saying. And the way they treat him here shows what most politicians of either party think of veterans. They're all, I support our vets until the vets disagree with their political views or priorities. Tell me I'm wrong, right? Officer Manbun looked awfully frightened. He says, if you watch the longer version of this, it'll make your stomach turn. Not one general turns around to look. They sit paralyzed, staring forward. They get called out for it too. Still nothing. I can't post it, so trying to link it. As he's being escorted out, he starts singing the Marine Corps hymn, and they shove him against the wall to try and cuff him. Oh my gosh. I can't believe that. So this is the full video. How long is this? Is there no audio on this? There's no audio on this, but this is him standing up to basically argue. They pull him out. They do the old stretch Armstrong on him at the door, and apparently he was singing the Marine Corps song on the way out. I'd like to see how his hand ended up getting tangled there, because it does seem like he was in a very, very strange and discombobulating spot. But they were really fighting him. He's saying nobody wants to fight for Israel. He put his hand on the door. Now, did he just get his hand stuck in there? They're manhandling him on a whole other level. This is a disgrace. This is a national disgrace for sure. Absolute disgusting scenes. They're saying as a Marine, he's got to stand up. He's too tough for them. That's a problem. So look, what's happening here? His arm actually gets caught in the door because that door shuts on his arm and he can't get out of there. He is actually locked in there and he can't get himself out, and then they break his arm. And I'm not going to show you that because that is going to be bad. Oh boy, I don't want to see that. No one wants to see that. Yeah, we're going to stop there. Oh, it's a disgrace. So there were some interesting comments on this version of the video. People saying, Jesus Christ, this was a swift response from law enforcement. All it took was the mention of Israel in a negative light. This is a US Marine. We're screwed. People saying it shows who we're owned by now. You tell me what you guys think of that, okay? Because I'm still trying to learn about how this whole Israel thing works, to be honest with you. People saying his handbraking is insane, but I was super creeped out the way they all sat there looking forward with seemingly no emotion like robots. Is Israel literally controlling them, or are they legit NPCs? Right? This thing is Uncanny Valley. All these, the benefits of being a veteran, nobody stood up to help. They're manhandling him as if he was a bomb. Disgraceful. Exactly. Freedom of speech is the First Amendment for a reason. All he did was say what was on his mind. A Marine who served in this country and is standing up to say the truth gets his arm broken and is treated like a criminal. Wishing him a speedy recovery. His courage and bravery is appreciated and acknowledged by all of us. That Marine probably gave more of himself to the USA than anyone else in that room. America is in a shameful state. The parasite will kill its host from the inside. You're seeing it in real time. It is actually twisted. So look, let's take a little look at some of the justifications for the war, some of the areas where maybe Israel kind of forced America's hand a little bit, allegedly, and that was originally said and then it was backtracked. So just days ago, Marco Rubio would publicly explain the administration's justification for war, and it raised a few eyebrows, to be honest with you guys.
As the war in Iran escalates, President Trump says the U.S. is ahead of schedule.
We projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that.
The administration said over the weekend that Iran was threatening U.S. forces. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio explaining it this way.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces.
Saying the U.S. had to move fast to avoid higher casualties.
The imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us.
So they're saying we knew Israel were going to attack and it was going to lead to a big response. And Israel had already made up their minds. We weren't planning to attack. And then we decided because they would do get back regardless and hate America because of this, we just decided to get in on the attack with Israel and destroy them. And it kind of does paint a narrative that basically America is kind of getting its marching orders from Israel inadvertently. And people aren't happy about that.
Proactively, in a defensive way.
Democrats aren't buying it.
But if we equate a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the United States, then we are in uncharted territory.
Overnight, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking on Fox News.
You're not going to have an endless war. This terror regime in Iran is the weakest point that it's been here.
Echoing Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who earlier insisted the war wouldn't be forever.
This is not Iraq. This is not endless.
But there has been mixed messaging.
The objective was not regime change. The objective was to take out those missiles.
On Saturday, the president said this to the Iranian people, suggesting regime change.
When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take.
Now he's stressing 4 objectives for the U.S. mission: destroying Iran's missile capabilities, annihilating their navy, preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, and ensuring they can no longer fund proxy terror groups outside the country.
This was our last best chance to strike.
Now, one question for a lot of people is whether this conflict could involve American troops on the ground. Yesterday, the president and the defense secretary would not rule out boots on the ground, but President Trump is focusing on the military airstrikes for now, saying he wants to hit Iran where it hurts. Chanel?
All right, Gabe, thanks.
Hey, thanks for watching.
So, look, that was pretty crazy, right? It does make it sound like Israel maybe calling some of the shots. And President Trump would kind of walk this back. He would make a statement basically saying that the attack was actually based on a feeling that Iran was going to strike first. And people have gone on to say this was a feeling based on fact. But it was a feeling. It was based on fact.
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. But Israel was ready, and we were ready, and we've had a very, very powerful impact because virtually everything they have has been knocked out now. Their missile count is going way down. Amazingly, they're hitting countries that were, let's call them neutral, right? They lived together for a long time. I think they were surprised. I was surprised. I think and now those countries are all fighting against them and fighting strongly against them. Someday they'll write a story and they'll say why they did that. But they hit countries that had nothing to do with what's going on. They were sort of.
So Trump's basically saying, no, if anything, we forced Israel's hand. Now, Marco Rubio was then forced to quickly walk back his statements, which did look a little bit flip-floppy, didn't it?
You talked about Israel, Mr. Secretary.
Please, guys, I can't hear them all. Yes.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran, and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get.
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked
okay.
you a question.
No, were you the one that? Because somebody asked me a question yesterday. Did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you were asking me that follow-up, and I said no. I told you this had to happen anyway. The president made a decision, and the decision he made was that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ballistic missile program, that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ability to conduct these attacks. That decision had been made. The president systematically made a decision to systematically destroy this terroristic capability that they had, and we carried that out. I was very clear in that answer. This was a question of timing, of why this had to happen as a joint operation, not the question of the intent. Once the president made a decision that negotiations were not going to work, that they were playing us on the negotiations, and that this was a threat that was untenable, the decision was made to strike them. That's what I said yesterday, and you guys need to play it. If you're going to play these statements, you need to play the whole statement, not clip it to reach a narrative that you want to do, all right?
All right, so a little bit of a walk back there if you ask me. But, if he didn't mean to say it, he didn't mean to say it. If he did mean to say it, then he backtracked on it. Okay, that's what it is. Now, the New York Times will just release a detailed investigation and timeline of the events that led up to the attacks, and it gives more context.
How did President Trump decide to go to war? I think the story of the last couple of months is just how much Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel was behind President Trump's decision to go to war in Iran. On December 29th, Prime Minister Netanyahu traveled to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump. He was arguing that sometime in the coming year, Israel might take action against Iran, and he would like Trump's support. This was at the very beginning of protests in Iran and the subsequent government crackdown on the protesters. I few days after the meeting with Netanyahu, President Trump said publicly he was ready for U.S. military action to support the protesters in Iran. The next day, the United States carries out a mission to capture the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. And the relative ease with which the United States carries it out gives Trump more confidence that he could do something similar in Iran. On January 14th, as Trump is considering a military strike on Iran, he gets a call from Prime Minister Netanyahu, who basically tells him to hold off. There isn't enough military troops or equipment in the Middle East to sustain anything more than a very short campaign. In the weeks that followed, the Pentagon carries out the largest military buildup in the Middle East in 2 decades. And Trump's focus shifts to deal with the nuclear program in Iran that he's been speaking about for years.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I've said that for 15 years.
On February 6th, the first diplomatic talks begin in Oman between Iranian officials and, on the American side, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff. But then on February 11th, Netanyahu and Trump meet for 3 hours. And during the meeting, Netanyahu is pushing Trump to not be distracted by the diplomacy and remain on the path for military conflict. The next day, President Trump orders the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier from the Caribbean, where he had carried out the Venezuela operation, to the Middle East for possible strikes against Iran. And then on February 13th, Trump, for the first time, says he believes the goal should be regime change.
Seems like that would be the best thing that could happen.
On February 26th, the negotiators met for the last time. The talks broke down because American officials walked away saying there was no prospect for a deal. But in reality, the decision for war was already effectively made. The combination of Netanyahu's constant pressure and the advice of some of his senior aides led Trump further and further towards the path towards war. On Friday afternoon, on board Air Force One, President Trump gave the official order to strike Iran. Looking back to that first meeting in December, Netanyahu was asking Trump for support. 2 months later, he got something even better: a full American partnership in a war against Iran.
So he locked in with the Israelis, right, and now things are getting a little bit out of hand. Now, interestingly enough, just yesterday, the Senate actually officially rejected a bill that was meant to limit Trump's authority to strike Iran. So he's going to be able to keep bombing their shit unchecked for the foreseeable future.
Senate lawmakers just voted down a war powers resolution introduced by multiple Democrats. If passed, the resolution would have blocked President Trump from ordering more strikes on Iran without congressional approval. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, joins us, and you've been following this resolution all day, Jeff. Were there any surprises, or did lawmakers vote as expected?
So there were only 2 lawmakers who voted against party lines earlier today, but both were expected. John Fetterman, a Democrat, voting against the resolution, and Rand Paul, a Republican, voting for it. However, 4 GOP senators who were mostly undecided going into the day ended up voting against it as well, including Lisa Murkowski and Tom Tillis.
The yeas are 47, the nays are 53. The motion to discharge is not approved.
On Capitol Hill Wednesday, Republican senators voting down a war powers resolution aimed at blocking President Trump from ordering more strikes on Iran without congressional approval.
We're at war with Iran. We've been at war for a long. They've been at war with us. We're finally at war with them. It's an undeclared state of war. I'm glad we're finally taking this regime on.
As expected, Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman was the only Democrat who voted with the 53 nays, and Kentucky's Rand Paul the only Republican with the 47 yeas. Meanwhile, other Democrats voicing their displeasure with the result. Illinois' Dick Durbin writing, quote, "The Constitution clearly gives Congress the power to declare war. It's long overdue that Congress step up to its responsibilities." And New Jersey's Cory Booker, quote, "This administration is putting our national security, the security of our allies, and the lives of our service members and citizens on the line."
American service members, they've lost their lives because of this administration's decision to strike Iran. And Congress was never even consulted about this, not once.
Now on Thursday, the House is set to vote on a similar bipartisan resolution introduced by Democrat Ro Khanna and Republican Thomas Massie, a resolution that also needs a simple majority of 218 votes to pass.
And to be clear, we aren't even here to declare war today. All we're voting on is a war powers resolution to reassert the Constitution.
In this body, let us declare with courage and clarity that we reject this illegal and unjust war in Iran. wrong.
But House Speaker Mike Johnson saying earlier this week he believes, similar to what happened in the Senate, he has the votes to beat it.
But the idea that we would take the ability of our commander-in-chief, the president, take his authority away right now to finish this job is a frightening prospect to me. It's dangerous, and I am certainly hopeful, and I believe we do have the votes to put it down.
Now, if the House resolution passes, President Trump does have veto power, and lawmakers would need a 2/3 majority to override that, meaning 290 votes if every lawmaker voted. Now, the House is scheduled to convene around 9 or 10 o'clock Thursday morning, with voting set to begin sometime after. Reporting for the National News Desk, I'm Jeff Harris.
So they're trying to basically stop Trump being able to do this unchecked. They're going to introduce another bill. The last one wasn't successful, but it sounds like he's got the support that he needs. But interestingly enough, now people are pulling up clips from Trump back in 2011, basically pointing out that this is a complete contrast to what he promised.
Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. So the only way he figures that he's going to get reelected, and as sure as you're sitting there, is to start a war with Iran.
Whoopsie doodles, okay, whoopsie daisy. They're saying every accusation is an admission. My God, he's weird. All right, a lot of people are thinking, hang on a minute, doesn't really track. Now, these are a couple of controversial figures. I'm not saying by any means I agree with these folks, but it is interesting because now a massive divide is growing between the administration, a lot of people that were supportive of Trump and the MAGA movement, and some of its most vocal kind of like, you know, the most vocal voices on the right that were supporting Trump, including Nick Fuentes and Alex Jones. They're even now saying, no, we're not rocking with Trump anymore. It's gone too far. We don't agree.
And I'm watching it sink by its own doing. And so this is horrifying. And so, but I can't sign on to covering up Epstein. I can't sign on to World War III. And so that's why I tried to promote the optimism, because I fucking need this, man. Like, I want to fix the country. I want to turn it around. So it's not that I was delusional. And I still hope we can turn it around, but I just, sorry, go ahead. You get what I'm saying?
I get it. And listen, like I said, I don't think that everybody that supported Trump was being dismissive about these concerns. I get it. You know, we all wanted to believe. I was 18 years old when Trump ran in 2016. And I remember getting in fights with people. This is my whole life, too. At 18 years old, I wore the MAGA hat at Boston University, one of the most liberal campuses in the country, and became a pariah on my college campus.
It's sad to see something you fought and bled for die.
Yeah, and that's my whole adult life. I know that's a huge part of your life also, and now we're witnessing it's totally unraveling. It's an utter and complete betrayal. It's heartbreaking in many ways.
And when I try to salvage it with people, I get attacked as a liberal, which is when these people doing that can't even find Iran on a fucking map.
Yeah, well, what's called for is for us to be sober-minded about the entire thing, because there's a lot of Trump haters.
I've been a realist the whole time, but was hoping, and now I'm just not even hoping. I'm just going to be a realist.
Yeah, I mean, and really, it's okay to have hope. I mean, we hope for a better future, but we got to be brutally honest about what this administration has become.
So, look, not that I necessarily agree with this dweeb, all right, Nick Fuentes is definitely a bit of a weirdo, but a lot of people were in complete shock when he announced that he probably is going to be voting Democrat in the next election.
This has to be the breaking point. This is the breaking point for the GOP coalition. You buried the Epstein files. There is no border wall. You didn't deliver on mass deportations. You cut corporate tax rates for the rich by cutting Medicaid again. No infrastructure bill, no middle class tax cuts. You got to refund the tariffs. And now we're in a regime change war with Iran. That's the breaking point. I'm out. I'm done. I am off the Trump train. I am not voting in 26. If Rubio or Vance are on the ticket in any form in 28, I'm voting for a Democrat.
So basically, okay, I don't really agree with many things Nick Fuentes says, full stop. I think he's a fucking lame asshole with a lot of really extreme, unsavory opinions. And I don't think he even believes a lot of what he says because he's just saying what he has to get people riled up and to make his money. Anyway, I wanted to just show you that, to just show you even the most extreme people on the right, even the extremely radicalized people that say the craziest stuff, partly just to get attention, partly because maybe they agree with some of it, but they want to rile it up to get their clicks and to get their platforms off the ground. Even they're turning on Trump, which is absolute insanity. All right, it's insanity. So I wonder what's going to happen with this. Okay, I do think that the Israel connection is really interesting, just as far as like, you know, if Israel are giving marching orders to the US and the US are following suit, that's not great for the autonomy of the United States. But on the other hand, I do feel like, look, Iran, they might have been trying to develop a nuclear bomb. They might have had very, very bad plans for the United States. And although it does sound absurd, you know, Trump just did this based on a feeling that he was going to be attacked. If he hadn't acted and that Iran had attacked and done something bad, you know, blown up an American base, killed American soldiers that way, you know, it would have been a different kind of firestorm that we're facing right now. So I can't necessarily say that like it should have not happened. We can't really go back in time now, but I do think that this connection with Israel, this never-ending war, you know, Israel have been at conflict in the Middle East pretty much since its formation, and unfortunately the Americans are being dragged into that now in a big way that we haven't necessarily seen before. So it's scary times. Marines are getting their arms broken for even speaking up against Israel and not wanting to fight on their behalf. It is an absolute mess. That was a disgrace, seeing that guy's arm snapped in half. Never seen anything like it. Grossed me out, to be honest. Hope he's recovering well. I hope he gets the care that he needs. You know how they know how to be doing the veterans, so he might not be getting the care he needs. But look, I'll keep you guys updated if I hear anything else about this. I've got some more Epstein updates coming for you guys. We haven't forgotten about it. The war's not fully distracted us, so I will be back with some Epstein updates for you guys very soon. I'm about to run a few errands, but I will be back with some more content hopefully tonight or tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching these ones, though. I will catch you in the next tranche of videos. And until next time, guys, peace out. Thank you for watching.